I think I have officially become cocoon pilled, right? My continuing side quest to probably waste as much time as humanly possible playing with it has resulted in me thinking it's just crazy good. And considering how much I've been into Helix, right, for the last few years, like 18 months, maybe 2 years, um, I just started to think that maybe Kotaku makes the argument for Helix much weaker rather than stronger, although Helix is the more popular project. So, like, when you think, right, okay, let's do this. Let's do this again, right? So, we've got Cocoon open here, right? We'll open a new scratch buffer. But actually, no, we'll open up a trampoline. There we go. This is like the inbuilt equivalent of like Vim Tutor, I guess. But shit, I went through this on a stream the other day. It's not very good. And then we just do HX Tutor, right? So the motions are the same between the two because Helix inherited its motions from Cocoon, right? With a couple of key differences in the motions. And as products, let's just do a quick back and forth to say how they differ, right? And it's substantial, but also kind of not, right? So the thing with Helix is, yeah, it inherited all of its motions from Cocoon. It added some stuff that Cocoon can't do out of the box because Helix is a much more batteries included affair, right? So the big problem I always had with NeoVim was not so much the motions did not click with me as well as they should have done. I didn't dislike them, and I can do it, but they don't feel natural. And getting better at them, considering how much time I put in, I learned much more Helix in a vastly shorter amount of time than I did several years of intermittently playing with Vim and maybe a couple of months trying to use it a bit more actively. I learned more Helix kind of overnight almost. And I find it just more fun, right? But yeah, the other half of it was the amount of configuration you do in Helix, not so Helix, in Vim or NeoVim to get it into something you want to use. It's pretty high, right? Which also turned me off. And that also turned me off all of like the packages, like lazy nvim and all that kind of shit, because they actually compounded the problem, right? Because they are layers of abstraction and indirection on top of the core of NeoVim that you then have to wade through and read the documents and get intimately familiar with a bunch of, sort of side projects and their documentation. It always just become productive. That's a spoiler for later, but anyway, let's go back to Helix and Cocoon, right? So that's what put me onto Helix in the first place. And Helix inherited, its motions from Cocoon, right? So the basic stuff is all there. So I really need to... Can I do this? Give me 1 second, actually. Give me 1 minute. 1 sec. Okay, right. I am back, and I've turned on. Well, actually, reinstalled and turned on this guy. Look at this. Shows the keyboard shortcuts. Let's just quickly display mode. Just got to be careful that I don't go into any whatever it is. Key. Position. Where are we? I'm right. There we go. Hey, there we go. Excellent. So now you can see my keyboard keystrokes. Yeah, so going back to what I was saying. So yeah, with this, the standard keystrokes are the same, right? Does it show chords? Keystroke chords? 1 second. Appearance, style, transitions. This looks pretty, but I'm not sure if it's actually the best one. I had a couple of these, but I can't remember the other one I was using previously. I have to have a look. Anyway, this will go do for now. Right, so the basic motions are the same, right? So yeah, JK, HL, all that sort of stuff inherited from Vim. You know, they both share a lot of similarity with Vim. But where Helix sort of differs, right? Obviously, the Vim thing that it basically makes the main difference is if we go like, you know, W, E, and B does navigating between words and stuff, right? Oops, press R. Undo that. Yeah, so yeah, W, E, B navigates between words, right? Which is great, fantastic. But yeah, it makes selections, right? So that's the Helix slash Kakoune thing, right? Of sorry, I'm quickly just open this up. Displays don't display on that one. Okay, transition, snap, whatever. Okay, so yeah, the thing with so yeah, make selections. That's the sort of Helix bit of it, right? Like you make selections and then you flip the object verb around, so it's like instead of verb selection, it's selection verb, so you can see what you're doing. But they threw a few bones out to the Vim lot, or the Neo Vim lot, I guess, when they ported it, because again, this is the same system, and it's incredibly similar, right, in Kakoune and Helix. So similar that it's effectively the same, but there's a few differences, and there's a few things that Helix does do that Kakoune doesn't, right, out the box, which is an important distinction. But yeah, the main meat and potatoes is it does the selection, you know, the selection action thing, you know, that's the main difference, right? But yeah, they threw a few bones out to the Vim lot. So one of those is this one, V, select mode, right? So if I want to say, obviously where every motion makes a selection, right? If I press V, and then I can make a selection of all these and delete all these at once, right? That's how you would, you can also do like whatever, you know, that will always go to the second word. If I do like 2E, it'll go to the end of the second word, right? But you can't make a selection. So like in Vim, it would be like your motion would be D2W, right? Delete 2 words. In here, it's basically don't want to do it that way. It's V2W D, right? So you could go to 2 words and delete, right? So it's a longer keystroke. So, but they put this in, right? This select mode, because basically Kakoune doesn't have it, and this is actually better. So where you've got like, let's just do word, right? Where is it? This is, never think about this. Word. There we go. Words and word, right? So this is again inherited from Vim, where you've got the brilliant example here, right? So you've got it says here, yeah, one of a kind requires 7 keystrokes to be traversed. Modal requires 3 keystrokes. Move the cursor back to the beginning of the line, and then type W to select the individual words, and you'll see it's much shorter. So if I just go like to, wrong one. Go back. Yeah, go back to here, and then yeah, we'll just do this, and we just do like E, or W. If you did W or E, either way. Versus with a shift, it's obviously takes into account the hyphens and all that crap, right? Well, it's just everything but a white space character. So that's on shift, which is inherited from Vim. And the two things that Kakoune do differently, the only 2 differences in terms of the real core feature set, is that behavior is flipped. So in here, if I press Shift E, it just carries on selecting, because it's really intuitive. So you have no visual mode, so you press V, it just says view. It's got a view menu, right? There is no visual mode. There's only 2 modes. There's insert and normal. That's it. It doesn't even say normal, because it's just the other mode. You're either inserting or not, right? That's it. That's all there is to it. So yeah, so if you want to select words, so if we do that same thing, let's come over here. Actually, we'll grab this line. We'll get rid of the so V. Let's do 2 there. Delete. No, whatever. Okay, and then we'll go and then we'll grab this line here, and then we'll just paste that in, right? So I know. So if we want to select this line here, obviously we can press, for select the entire line, you press X, right? That's the same. That's also the same in Kakoune, right? But then if I want to select the end of here, I can press Shift or whatever. But to select like piecemeal, I'd have to do V, E, 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 right? And that's then, you know, does with the white space. Or if we do it in Kakoune, which works the same way, we don't have to go into visual, just hold down Shift, right? But yeah, we've got that. That's our 7 keystrokes to do the whole thing. So how do we get that capital word white space only behavior? You press Alt, right? So you just do Alt E E E, and then you get that same behavior. So if you just do Alt Shift, oh, it doesn't work in this bloody. There's a problem with this terminal. That doesn't work. It's very. Let's just do prompt. Hang on, prompt. Okay, and then we'll just do, yeah, we'll just do cac, full screen that, boop. Okay, and then we'll just do trampoline. There we go, and then, I think I've still got this in my, I do, excellent, yeah, so it will work here. So yeah, if I do Alt, let's do that first. So yeah, this will work here. So yeah, Alt Shift then does that same behavior. It will select across. So your Shift behavior is on Alt, and Shift does what Shift does in every other application. It adds something to your selection, right? So if you're in like any other text editor in the world and you want to add more words with a keyboard, you just hold down Shift while using the arrows, and I'd add that to the selection. The same thing happens in Kakoune. It's really, really intuitive to the extent where I'm a bit like, you know, why didn't they just do that in Helix? HX. So that's one thing, right? So that's part of the Kakoune pilling of it, right? The Alt thing is just, the Alt and Shift thing is just better, right? Some might say, oh well, it's, you know, holding out Alt and Shift is no. The amount of time you spend doing it, you don't do it that often. I've like worked as a designer for years. The amount of time I've held down Alt and Shift while pressing keyboard shortcuts and also using the mouse at the same time to do stuff, it's not a big deal, right? That's a sort of faux efficiency thing. There's lots of other ways to make selections that don't include you holding Shift, and you know, it's also one less keystroke. So if you want to talk about efficiency, you don't have to change modes. And I think the jury might be out on that. Who cares? It doesn't bother me, is what I'm saying. So that's one part of my my Kakoune pilling. There's a few things that are also different, like that are better. So I think honestly the V mode stuff is actually a regression. I think it's worse. This is not as good as that. It just isn't, in my opinion. But there's a few other things that they sort of did as well, right? So in Helix. So the thing with Kakoune is it's minimal, right? So that's the two parts of Helix's proposition, is the different movement, different motions, right, which are more intuitive and easy to learn, and you know, have a lower cognitive load, I guess, is what they say. Whether you agree with that or not is up to you. But yeah, there's that half of the equation, and the other half is the other half is the fact that it's batteries included, right? And that configuration hell in the OVM. But the trade-off for that has always been, which is still true at the moment, it may not be true soon, is there's no plugin system, right? So you get a lot of stuff out of the box, a lot of really, really cool features out of the box. But what is in the box is what's in the box, right? And I think that's one of the things where some people are sort of philosophically like, yeah, that's right, it does everything I need it to. But then from a lot of people, and I imagine most people, it's not going to do everything you need it to. And if something in Helix doesn't work the way you'd like it to, you're kind of stuck, right? Your ability to modify it are limited, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And the ways in which you can modify it a lot of the time is actually enough. I'm not trying to say it's like, you're so limited. You're not. You're really not. And it does do so much. And this is why I've used it happily for a couple of years now, for the most part. There's only a few little corners where I wish it did that, but then the niceness of the editing has always made me go, I can look past that, you know? It's a push and pull thing. But Kakoune's minimal, right? So Kakoune, you get just as much of zero as you do in NeoVim. So why do I find that awesome in Kakoune, right? but I find that infuriating in Vim. It's because of the way you do things in Kakoune, right? So let's just quit and we'll go to cac. That's one. So let's do cac. Oh, cac and cac. There we go. Cac and cac. Excellent. Oops. There we go. And we'll go to cacrc. There we go. Excellent. Right. So yeah, inside Helix, let's go to edit. What was it? Config open. Right. So config.toml, excellent toml file, fantastic. But this is the extent to which you can edit stuff, right? So you can do like what I've got here. We can pipe out to shell scripts. I think I've shown this on the previous stream, but you can pipe out to shell scripts, which is again a Kakoune escodere. And then also you can attach macros, I guess, to keyboard shortcuts, or you can do shell stuff, attach those to keys, right? But that's it. That's kind of what you've got, right? And that gets you, if you really need to change stuff, that gets you an awfully long way. This thing here doesn't really work, to be honest. I just haven't deleted it, but this is a thing for opening up Yazzie, which is like a file picker, to add a file picker and then open the file up subsequently back into Helix. So you can bodge stuff together if you want, and you can mix it in. But the composability of like Kakoune is its whole thing, right? So where in NeoVim you have to write a whole bunch of Lua scripts, and you could do that here if you really wanted to. Kakoune is just saying I am a Unix pro, because I think it doesn't work on Windows, which is again no great loss. But it's basically saying I am a Unix program. I'm going to be Unixy in the way I work, which means I do one thing well, and that is, oh look, joyful sandwich, and that is I'm going to edit text, and everything else, let something else do it, and then I'll just take in the results and pipe things around. You know, that Unix philosophy thing. And it takes that not to an extreme, it takes that to the exact extent, right? So there's this idea of the editing model is like more, there's a clearer design intent in terms of Kakoune. There's very few. I always say when it comes to, if you have a product, right, you have something which is like, if it ends with it's like X, but that's not always the best foundation, right? If it's like X, I don't know, but it's the nature of that but, right? So if the but is we've bolted some extra stuff on, so it's almost like it's like thing, and I guess I don't know, like if you say this is like Vim, but you get more stuff in, but you can't configure it, but the motions are different, which not everyone will like, but you can't turn them off, and other plugins no, but the configuration's good, okay, and like, do you know what I mean? It's a series of caveats versus a different philosophical thing, or at least that's how you put it, right? Whereas this, it's like, it's not really like Vim. It's got a different set of, it's a modal editor that has a different set of opinions about what those motions should be, and it works in a Unix way, as terminal apps were kind of always intended to. That's a much stronger core argument. I might be like, stacking the deck here in my favour, but that's a simpler explanation of what the propositions of these two things. But one is probably much more fancy. I mean, this is like Helix is cool in a way that Kakoune isn't cool, right? Kakoune's like a big, it's almost more nerdy than Vim, I guess, in a way, because it's so much like whatever. Like there's a really good article I read which is like extensibility versus composability. So if you have a plugin system, you can then extend Vim, but you compose in Kakoune, right? So the way you do all of this configuration to make it into a bigger product is you just write a shitload of shell scripts, basically, but like, and it has like a bunch of like nice hooks, I guess, and the core of it is really really cool, right? For sort of like inheriting those changes from other programs. So I've gone. That's a 19-minute intro to the idea of this stream. But yeah, this article here is actually really good. This is a lot of fun. This one. I'm going to turn off the keystroke thing because it's actually annoying me. I'm going to get a better app than the one I'm using. So yeah, this is a really good doc, right? This is a really good article here. And like, there's a lot of things that Kakoune sort of the bones of Kakoune are probably better in a lot of ways than Helix, but it doesn't have as many of its tricks, right? And there are things that are worse. So like if we go over to here, we've got I'm in the wrong location. But yeah, we've got like a file picker to do this. We've got like a local file picker, right? I can see my open buffers. Lovely, lovely file picker. To do that in Kakoune, this is basically just me piping out FCF and saying, open the result of this FCF search back up in Kakoune, which on one side is like, well, that's hacky, but where there's a couple of like killer things that Kakoune just does so much better than Helix. It's not even funny. And one of them is the fact that it works natively with, it's not a single process, it's like a daemon, right? So it's like a little background process that runs, and you can connect multiple clients into it, which means that it can exist in things like tmux, right? So if you're using a multiplexer, you can have multiple clients attached to the same Kakoune session, which you can't have in Helix, right? Helix is a single instance. So where here I've got two windows open, if I have two Helixes side by side, they are detached, and part of the workflow is going here and just typing reload, right? If I change a file over here that I might also have open in this split over here, I have to go into one of these and reload that file because they won't pick up the change automatically. Because it can't pick up the change automatically because that feature also is not in Helix yet. So in Kakoune, it's like you just attach yourself to a Kakoune session, which means things like building an FCF based thing just means, well, I just have the keyboard shortcut I want, so that same one there, space B, and I've got my files open and my open buffers, but I'm just using FCF, right? Which means that, and it works brilliantly, it works fantastically. I've already got a file open, but if I do one of these and I go, dist, or what are you doing? And I open this up, very important piece of code this. But yeah, it works fantastically. It's just FCF. Previously, I was doing this with television. It was like a Rust-based thing similar to FCF. FCF was easy to work with, so I just did that. But I've got those options, and it was really quick to do, and dare I say, fun. And that's where I think the Kakoune part of it, the Kakoune configuration part, feels, although it's not really, it feels simpler, and to me at least, nicer than writing stuff for Vim, because you still write less than the Vim. Like I've been sort of the last couple of days down the rabbit hole of sort of almost turning Kakoune into all the features I kind of want from Helix. I've been bringing into this Kakoune config, and I'm a lot of the way there in a couple of days. But that's just more like a leisure thing, right? And I've still got like not very. This is the main. This is your CAC-RC file. This is your main sort of like RC file. I mean, this is 62 lines, and I've got another one. So I've got this thing called space menu. Let's just do that. GF, there we go. Hey, yeah, and this is 182 lines, but this is a bunch of functionality, and this is this menu here, right? The whole thing. Well, I think everything inside this menu lives inside this file here, right? So I've got probably like, and this is maybe unnecessary, but I've got this sort of like, and I've got this one called commands, which is probably another 30 lines. Remap keys is like just the keys I've been remapping, and these are ones I've pulled in. These are other people's work, right? Harpoon, which is like a version of Harpoon for Kakoune. Harpoon, and they should have done something, some alliteration thing with that. And then Crosshairs does this highlight thing, this line highlighting, and then this is a little like plugin manager, which you don't even need. It just is a nice utility thing. And then we've got a few little plugins here. So you can pull stuff in off the shelf. There are plugins for it. But then if you go into one of these plugins, let's go into Crosshairs, for example. Let's just do this. Boop, boop, boop. Oh, there we go. Yeah. This is just more shell script, right? 98 lines of shell script. And this is the thing that does this highlighting thing. Oh. So, yeah. It's pretty minimal, and let's go into CAC. There we go. Right. So, yeah. So we've got these sort of things, and this is like me implementing a whole ton of things. Right. It's not a very. It's quite a maximal thing already, and you're still much lower than I think a Vim setup. But also, this was a laugh, and it's really easy to reason about. And I was looking at some of these plugins that I pulled in. So this thing here, this plug thing, is a plugin manager. Which you don't need. Again, you can just pull in the same way we've done this, right? You just pull in. They're just all shell scripts, and you can like just take the standard I/O from third-party things and then pipe them straight in. Obviously, you can do that. It's a terminal, but it encourages you to do it. And also, Helix is crazy fast compared to NeoVim. Kakoune is similarly crazy fast. Apparently, Kakoune's faster because it does less. And every time you call out to one of these, you can introduce like this sort of thing, right? This whole thing of like sourcing files has an overhead, right? However, it's not great. It's not huge. Plus, every time Kakoune doesn't really do that much, so it's always like a call and response type thing, right? You fire off an action. It maintains its own state very quickly, but it doesn't actually do much unless you tell it to. So it's quite easy to keep it fast. And so I imagine if you carried on adding more and more to this, obviously you will slow down. You're doing more code, but in the relative like thing of how powerful computers are and how light on resources this is, you're not realistically gonna, it's good. It should stay very quick. I don't think the whole thing of like having Vim configs that grind to a halt, I think it's probably less of an issue here. Plus, as far as I'm concerned, what I've done so far is, quote me if I'm wrong, finished. Not really, but anyway. But yeah, the extensibility part, I give an unnecessary pass to, right? In a way that I can't for Vim, and it might just be my bias. But, because again, out of the box, Kakoune doesn't do that much. It just has the core editing, and it's just a text editor. But there's lots of other cool features. So let's look at some of these plugins and some of this configuration, right? So we've got space menu, which is this space menu. We've got commands, which is just, let's just go into it. Let's do commands. There we go. And then yeah, we've got some I'm bringing in like some features here from Helix. So BC to close buffer. I use that all the time. That's just a muscle memory thing. It's just under a different word. So I'm basically just adding an alias for it, really. New scratch, again, this is like a long command I can't be bothered to remember, so I've just created a command called scratch. And commands are just what's defined here. So this is a command, so if I do scratch, there we go. And you can do a second thing to bind it to a keyboard shortcut if you want to do that as well. So you'll see that in a second. So yeah, close all buffers apart from this one, pretty straightforward. Again, you're just running some shell script. Same edit config, reload config, these don't exist, so I have not gotten into the habit of doing this yet. I do this all the time in Helix, but I've just so far been, because it doesn't come out of the box, I've been going into the folder to edit this stuff, but you can just go straight there. It's fine. Let's go back. There we go. And then yeah, so system clipboard is also not a thing by default, but look at this. It's literally, this is not cross-platform, but I just say, you know what, just use the thing in macOS and then just write a thing on the screen. It's so incredibly simple, and then paste some system clipboard and then replace, right? It's pretty cool, and then you say, well, execute these keys, right? Just do this. It's fun. It's really fun. Oh, that is a better message. So here's another one. You can toggle, you can compose it really easily. So we can say, I've got a command here called toggle motion hints. And then I've got this just command here. So set add global auto info normal. So basically this is, gives you the syntax of this. So I do this set or whatever. So yeah, set option. This is just changing something. Scope, name, value. Yeah. So yeah, global buffer window, whatever. So this is basically saying globally turn on the auto info. So we go into, so let's do set add, because we're adding something, basically turning it on. Global, and then we do auto info. It'll also tell us what auto info does, right? Or if I go back to auto info, actually, auto, oops. Oh, info. Oh, it should do. It did before. Anyway, I'm being an idiot. Anyway, auto info is basically, well, if I turn it on, toggle motion hints, it just does this, right? It tells you, it's just a fun little bit of fluff. And this is why I'm still, getting a grip. So some of the minor differences between it, I can just have this on, or I can say toggle, toggle motion hints, turn it off. Great. And then to expose it in a menu is pretty easy. So if I go into space menu, we can see this is how you basically bind that to a command, right? So if you've got like just a general, so here's a command, FCF files. I've created one of these like definitions down here. Again, I'm just piping some stuff to shell scripts. I'm just saying, yeah, open this up, and then yeah, in Zellage, turn into a float. And then at the top, we just do map. We give it a string to say here's the here's the words attached to it. Where it happens. Is this in global? Is it in one of the modes? There's different modes, right? There's only 2 edit modes, but there's various other view modes, and you can also define your own modes, right? So we've got a user mode here called space menu. So you've created a new context that exists to contain these files, right? And just by virtue of adding stuff to here, it adds it to a menu. We've created a menu. It's pretty straightforward. So we've got FCF files, and you just pipe in what you want to do, and then a key. So we're just saying, enter this command and press return. Excellent. And you can do other stuff, like right here I've got a thing that I have in my Helix config, which is custom, is inserting a new line above and below stuff. So I have a different binding, but you can just do this, right? I might change this, but I'm a white space kind of person, so you can add white space using that keyboard shortcut. Right now it's in the space menu, it might move. So the config is pretty easy to kind of get your head around. If you know a bit of shell script, you're going to be fine, right? So going into some of the stuff I pulled in, so these are just a bunch of keyboard shortcuts I've remapped. Let's just go into this actually quickly. And then, yeah, so we've got, this is something I have in Helix. Let's not talk about that right now. Oops. There we go. Whatever. I need to get a new binding for that. I don't like this. It's space, and then I need to work that out. Anyway, so I have a toggle for the cursor highlighting, so I can use C to turn this. Oh no, no, that's in view. So VC. There we go. V. Oh, this should work. Oh, key not mapped. Oh, I've broken that. Cursor line? Cursor? Yeah, cursor line. Oh. What? V. Huh. That is odd. I've buggered that. Oh well. Okay, well I'll figure that out later. Yeah, so there you go. Previous buffer, so I've got this. This is inherited from Helix as well. So GN, GP, go next, go previous, or GA is default, so you can go to the previously accessed file. Is a thing. Let's go back to here. Where were we? We were in commands. So yeah, there's that toggle motion hints, and there is. Yeah, there's my paste and replace stuff, and then we've also got this, which I've copy and pasted from the document I think I showed you in, where is it? In here, this one. So that's my custom stuff out to this, but I've got a bunch of plugins added as well, right? So, and plugins are just other people's shell scripts, right? So it feels a lot more like customizing your terminal itself, right? Over it's like playing with, like, I don't know, like oh my posh or whatever, or just doing his ZSHRC over configuring a thing. So it feels familiar, and it's equally kind of, I find this fun, but then I might be a weirdo. So yeah, so there's a plugin here for auto pairs. It does what you think it's going to do. If we open up a pair, it's going to add a pair for us. Pretty straightforward. Same thing like this thing called byline, which is they changed this. So if I go into Helix, if I press X to select a line, I can keep pressing X to select more lines, right? The one thing I've added to Helix is this thing here is extend line up, extend to line bound, which means I can press Shift X and extend lines upwards, right? And then downwards, and then keep expanding my thing. This does that basically. So, you know, same thing. But someone wrote, I actually put this in yesterday and then found a plugin that did the same thing. I was like, oh, fuck it, I'll use this. Why not? They spent more than the 2 minutes. But this was, I think I've got it in here somewhere. I think it might be in remap keys. I think I got half of it. There we go. Yeah, this was my thing here. Extend line downwards, and I had a half working version going the other way, but I hadn't finished it. I deleted it or something. I can't remember. I was in the zone, man, and yeah. So yeah, I just got that from a guy. Okie dokie. So, okay. So, I need to get Harpoon working. Actually, that's not really working at the minute. It's the only one I've found so far that doesn't actually work. So yeah, I've got that on here. This doesn't work. Let's just get rid of that. Yeah, so here's my options for the auto pairs. In fact, I'm going to do this and put this up here because that works. Keep them together. So yeah, and we've got the CAC LSP, so Kakoune LSP, which seems to work pretty well. I've not done any configuration for this yet. In fact, actually, let's just move this up. Let's put this, I guess, here, right? And then get rid of that. So, yep, and then I've got this power line thing down here, which is pretty fun. I'm adding a theme, which is actually what I was supposed to be doing today, and I still might do, is porting some more themes or doing this more formally for Kakoune. And then yeah, highlighters. So this is a fun little feature. So highlighters are basically like change the style of something in the interface, and this is actually quite powerful. They've got things called faces and highlighters, which is how this works, right? So there's no built-in feature to do this line selection thing. Also, you might notice when I go into insert, I'm changing the color of the entire line. So if I go into my what's it called, crosshairs, and this is just someone else's thing I've modified, but that's just this, right? So I've gone, there's a hook. So this is basically a hook is like a hook into something happening in Kakoune. It's an event thing. So if I say, yeah, mode change, and then go into insert mode, I set the face to, yeah, global. I change my crosshairs line default, and that's just defined further down here. It's pretty straightforward, right? And then here's my default, so you can do column. This comes with it, column, and then we've got line, and I've just wrapped up some more stuff, so you can I think I'm turning it on by default. I keep going back to Kakoune, right? Yeah, so I'm turning it on by default. So I'm running that by default. Actually, is that why? Because that's not on a hook. Is that why that won't turn off? I need to fix that, but I don't really care that much because I'm not going to use this anyway. Key not mapped. Odd, very odd. Toggle cursor line highlighting. Very strange. Anyway, we'll have to fix that later. So, and the same thing's happening here, right? So we've got, this is my color, my cursor color changed thing. So by default, it just stays the same color. This is just that same thing. So yeah, on the mode change, I might put all this together actually. And then, yeah, we'll just do, we just change it back to the color, the one set by the theme. This is this is some bullshit. So down here we've got, not bullshit, it's fun. So right now this is called Joyful Sandwich. So again, this is multi-client. So I can create a new window, and I can just do, well, actually the better way to do it is probably like this. So if I go back into Kakoune and I just do new, it'll create it for me, right? Because it's native. So I've got a new one. This is Playful Tulip, but it's 33074, 33074, right? It's the same instance. I've just created a new client for it, right? Or a new view into it. So then each one of those gets a name, right? So you can see a name for it. And that's this file here. So this is just me playing, because I wanted to just honestly have an excuse, because I like Crystal, I like Ruby. I was like, oh, I can just do this in, so it's a really just dumb thing. It's just this, right? If you're not familiar with like Ruby syntax, it's just me saying, take these two and just stick them together and output it. And it works really well. And the only reason I did it in Crystal was because I just could, I guess. It doesn't matter. It was like 5 minutes worth of work. But I was like, okay, if it's like quite a long, list of like words, I guess, you've got some overhead booting the Crystal app, because Crystal's like Ruby, but it's compiled, so it's quick. It's like very, very quick. Yeah, so it's like you can just ask the program to spit you out a string, right? It's really, really dumb, but fun. And I was like, well, if this gets longer and I just put all of this into a shell script, it might actually introduce more over. I don't actually know the facts of that. It's probably not fucking true. And we're talking like negligible amounts of compute here in all scenarios, right? Doesn't matter. This is dumb. This is fun, so I don't care. Because there's a few people like who've been doing some stuff in like Lua. And like Lua, JIT stuff similar to Vim, which I've not touched any of that because I kind of don't really want to at the moment, because you could get this to a place where you complicate it as much as you do the NeoVim ecosystem and build those things. And the closest thing I've got to that is definitely this thing here, Plug. But this is also, again, all this is really doing is saving you the effort of just doing this a bunch of times. So these two aren't mine, these three are, right? And this is me just sourcing this plugin and then loading it. That's it. And it gives you this plug function. Someone who's good at shell scripts basically has just written this. So you can just say, yeah, plug, and then you can open up some brackets and then just pass some shit to it. It's really nice. But yeah, that's probably the furthest I might go at the minute in terms of that. But again, that thing of like the config getting a pass in Kakoune and not in NeoVim might be me being a huge hypocrite. I've just found this really fun, and I found it a headache in Vim because you can experiment with it, right? I don't know that much. I don't even know that much shell scripting, really. I'm really bad at it, but like you can just experiment with stuff, and most of the time it just kind of works, you know, which is pretty fun. Is this? Ooh, hold on. Is that? There we go. Pick syntax. So here's a fun one, right? So here's where so I've been sort of implementing a lot of Helix-esque features. So I've got this in there. A lot of my keyboard shortcuts are now, the ones that aren't there previously are the same. There's a couple that are kind of different, and some features vary. So there's one which I'm still on the fence about, right? So there's one I use in. Do I have Tutor open? I thought I did. Oh, okay, weird. Maybe I can't remember it. Anyway, point is, so in here we've got the match. How do you spell match? That's how you spell match, right? Where's the select command? That's not it. Here we go. Adding selection. No, that's not it either. Oh my gosh. Using match mode. Right. Oh, that's not it either. Damn. Oh, you can't. No, it is. It is. So yeah, on M, we've got this match menu, right? So match, go to matching bracket. So we can do. Yeah, that's not working. Oh, is it not in a bracket? Yeah. That doesn't actually work that well. Oh, okay, weird. But yeah, you can do MIM to say match, so you can say match in, right? So match inside, surround, replace, surround, delete, surround around object, select inside object. This is one of the coolest features in Helix because it's all built around TreeSitter, so it uses TreeSitter to do this, and like mixed with TreeSitter LSP and the way it can traverse the actual file is really powerful inside Helix, which is not the case in Kakoune. It's much simpler in Kakoune. You get a lot of the same end result, but it's not quite as good out of the box. Definitely not. So there's a couple of fun features in Helix that you can do. So you can like, I think it's on like, let's Control G. So you can do like, if you've got nested, let's do, yeah, so we can, I think it's like Alt or Command. I can't remember, Control. No, it's not. Ah, God. Hang on. What is it? I think it's Alt IO. I think. What is it? I can't remember. But there's one we can like you can traverse in and out of like nested. It's pretty often I use it in and out of nested brackets with like I and O, like you can with like editing software. I don't actually use it, but you can use that. But yeah, anyway, you can. It's fun. And inside here, press M. So select to matching character, which is not actually that thing. But if you press M, it does a very similar thing, right? So it just does, it matches, but it does that one thing. There's no menu here, right? To do what I've just done, you press Alt. So like inside here, right? If I go back to, so ungroup that. So if I go back to here, right, and I do MI and then I do square, right, it will match inside those square braces, right? Or I can do MA and I can do the same thing again. It'll match around, yeah? Really cool feature. Really, really like it. Oops. There we go. And then inside Koune, I just do Alt A, which skips that step of pressing M, right? Because then it's an Alt on A, right? So, actually, yeah, because that's actually, so I do Shift. Oh, okay. Huh. Oh, that does make sense, actually. Yeah, go to. Okay, yeah. Sorry, just aside for me. So, yeah, if I do Alt-A, that'll do around. So I can do, if I come down to this thing here, and I just highlight the C, and I Shift-A, it does the same thing. Or if I go back, and I just do Shift-Alt-I, right, same behavior. Just like pressing M first, and M does something different. So we've got we've got sort of a different set of stuff you can do here. So what we miss is you can do. So if I do inside here, if I go up, and this is sort of this lays it all out on you, and then Helix sort of nests it. So if I just do MA, it will tell me the rest, right? Because we've got two separate menus. So this nests and shows you. This shows you everything all at once, and this shows you more piecemeal. So yeah, we can do paragraph, type definition, function, argument, comment, a test, and this is where TreeSitter comes in, because it can query it via TreeSitter and say, well, let's present this to you so you can do this. It is more powerful than this for sure. However, most of the time, at least me, I am not trying to find, because then you also, with everything that has TreeSitter in parentheses at the end, it means you're beholden to the quality of the actual like TreeSitter scheme file and how well that's put together, which varies per language, and it's quite variable. Not to excuse the fact that it can't do it. It's very good, but it means you can't use it. You have to sort of test it once and go, did that work? Well, things like go to definition doesn't always work, right, with every LSP. It's the same thing, right, where you go like, oh, that doesn't work with this LSP for reasons. Same thing. So you get some variability. It may or may not work, but at least everything in here always works pretty much all the time, which is kind of nice. And this also covers the ones that I personally use. So I don't think I'd ever match around an entire function, because you can just do that the same way if you know how it's written. Like if you've got like JavaScript, you can sort of like, well, I can just go to the outermost like set of parentheses, and there we go, I've got the function selected. I don't know. But yeah, any character acting as a pair. So yeah, this works in the same way, apart from, you don't get this stuff out of the box. You might do with the TreeSitter stuff for Kakoune, because someone's written a TreeSitter implementation for Kakoune. I haven't used it yet, because I haven't found the need to. But yeah, we will see. So, so match mode stuff is kind of different. So I'm not sure. Ultimately, I think I do slightly prefer the implementation of this inside of Helix. This M button thing, let's go. Sorry, I've locked my thing. So yeah, this just pressing M, I find Alt M will match backwards select. So if I just do Shift M, extend to matching character. So if I just do Shift M, okay. So yeah, this does part. So the M key in a kind of like a magical. So if I do this, it's going to it's going to select to the curlies. So, and then I guess what will this do? Wow, that does something very unexpected, because it doesn't work with quotes, because a lot of the time you want it to do this, right? But then it jumps over the quotes, and I might come and fix this soon, because a lot of the time, if I grab this line here, right, and then go over to here, and then where am I? There we go. Just put it there. Why not? So yeah, what I'll do is I'll do MIM. Oops. I'm on a dot, so it won't work. MIM. No. What? Oh. I thought MIM would work there. Maybe it's gone mad. Anyway. Yeah, you want to do like this, right? So match in quotes. I wish that M key did that, but like a lot of time, this is pretty quick actually. I think you want to do. It'd be good if that had like a match inside, because a lot of time I don't actually want to do the matching around. 9 times out of 10, I don't want to replace the stuff inside. Not anyway. But also, there's no replace in here. So what I can do, if I go back to match mode, where is it? Oh, match. I should have a better thing to search by. Where am I? Using match mode jump. Okay. So yeah, match mode select inside, and you've got replace as well. Let's have a look at what they say. Surround. Yeah. So surround. It does do surround, but it won't do delete surround. So I can say, here we go. So I can say md, there we go, and delete the parentheses. Or I can do mr parentheses box, and then replace those with like square brackets, right? this is that you can't do that in Kakoune. Although in reality, I don't do that super often. Occasionally, you'd be like, "Oh, it's supposed to be an object," and you go, "Oh dear, oh, it's not even whatever." Let's go with oh yeah, it's supposed to be an object. Oh no, and then you can just do yeah, and then just do that, right? It's kind of cool, but you don't do it super often, so it's not the end of the world. I wouldn't mind. I think there's some people who've worked on adding this to Kakoune, and I'm going to probably look at doing it because it'd be fun, but. Otherwise, yeah, this match stuff is similar, slightly worse, I think, in Kakoune. Another thing it doesn't have, which I don't actually use, is GW, right? So go to Word, and I can do this. So if I want to say, let's say I'm at the word you, and I go to, you can naturally delete other kinds of surroundings. I press GW, I can press DU, and it'll take you to that one, right? I should use this. I never really have, because part of it doesn't fuck with me. Like, I just can't, like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't grab onto it. I've always noticed that it's quite convenient, and people like, this is a lot of people say it's a killer feature inside Helix, and I get it. So I'm just really like, I've seen that GZ. Where do I want to be? Just go Word IV. There we go, and then I can say, well, let's go to you can GW BM, right? Cool. I don't get it. And I looked at a plugin yesterday that does this, so I might have a look at this again and have a play with it. And the thing that's quite nice is because it's something you can just pull off the shelf, I know what it's going to be. It's going to be a bunch of like regex replace bullshit in a shell script. And there's a thing with the highlighters. The highlighters are actually a little bit of a killer feature inside Kakoune, right? So we're doing this thing here where we're highlighting a line, but like what I wouldn't mind doing later is I found a little thing on the internet yesterday, which was like you could have it so it would automatically highlight to-dos, or like, do you know what I mean? So if you got like a to-do comment, it would find it and it would apply a highlighter to it, which is really cool. And that internal state of it reading its own file state is extremely fast in Kakoune. And again, I think because it's doing less, it's going to be faster than Helix, and Helix is fast, right? This is a Rust app, this is a C++ app, but this is a really minimal, old school Unixy style C++ app. I think the example I used in a previous stream was, let's just delete that and create a new one. And if I open up Vim, right, excellent. Come over here, and I'll just open up Trampoline again. Trampoline, excellent. And if I grab all of this, right, come over to here, and then paste it in, it takes that amount of time to paste that into Vim, right? It takes a second. But let's do this in, let's do HX Tutor. This is a longer document. We'll grab all of that. Okay, and then we'll come up to here. In fact, let's just close this one down, right? And then undo that. Oop, undo. And then what we'll do is insert and then paste that in. And we can see it takes about a second to insert that. If I come over to Kakoune and I do a new scratch, right? Same thing again. It's instantaneous, 1500 lines, right? That's not even that much text. If I, let's say, double it, right? Okay, and then do this. So it's like, I don't know. Let's just do this. Okay, cool. So 400,000 lines, right? How long's that going to take to, let's undo that. Oh God. Is that? Well, there's the answer to your question. Oh, there we go. Oh. You might be here a while. I feel like I might crash my terminal doing this. I might have pasted it twice as well, so I might be pasting a million lines. Well, while that's going... Oh God, I think I've crashed my terminal. Okay. Let's try that again. Let's try that again. Okay. Right. So let's just paste that same thing back into Kakoune. Oh, that's going to take a second. This is 400,000 lines, so you're probably getting into some sort of like OS level thing going on here, which is not necessarily fair on anyone, really. You're never going to be copying and pasting 400,000 lines of code anyway. That's probably just a thing that actually, can Ghosty do it? Is this just a weird bullshit thing? Let's just have a look. Because like Ghosty's like significantly. Let's just do a new scratch. Scratch. Okay, and then let's do this. Can Ghosty do it? Probably not. Probably not, eh? Probably not. Oh, it's still interactive. It was interactive for a second. Right, let's just close Ghosty down. Let's go back into prompt. Right, so okay. All right. Well, okie dokie. So yeah, the point is my original point. So let's do HX tutor, right? And let's just do double that, right? Let's just do double, right? So we just get an idea of the different. What was my point here again? I just like doing this. This is just fun, right? And then we just put this into Vim, right? And then do this. Takes a second. We'll do the same thing too, and let's just do this because again, 6,000 lines. Let's do 9,000 lines, right? Okay, and then we'll just do this. Oops, in here. It's going to take a while, right? That's, yeah, almost 10,000 lines of code, and it's going to take, I could set a timer, but that was slow, right? If we go into, so let's just close that down, let's just quit. Oh my god, I couldn't get out of Vim. Go to Kakoune. Do the same thing again. And there we go. So it gives you an idea of the difference in performance of these things. If I go back into Helix, and then I just do something like a new scratch, and then just do the same thing. It's, yeah, similarly, they're trading blows here. They're both extremely quick. I can't remember my original point here was. I was having fun pasting lots of text in. I like being able to do this and just going whoa, and it just you know, like if I duplicate this, Y P P P, and this is not a powerful computer, right? That's just how fast these apps are. I can do the same thing here, and then let's just grab all of this, yank, and then yeah, same thing again, right? It just doesn't give a fuck. Neither of them care. They're just crazy performant, and it's just like line speed. But in terms of processing stuff, they're both extremely fast. So they trade blows there. Let's just close that buffer down. Right. So what we'll do. Oh yeah, that's a behavioural difference. Is also in whatever. Yeah, in Kakoune, buffers are not saved by default. In Helix, they are treated like they're treated not like scratch. A scratch buffer is a proper scratch buffer in Kakoune versus Helix treats it more like a new file, which I think I kind of prefer in Helix actually. Kakoune's like, no, you need to turn this into. But you can still save a scratch buffer, but things like, yeah, if I've got like a bunch of this is a and I go to close it, it's going to say, oh, you should save this. So I do the same thing in here. And I just go like, oh, I'm writing some words, and I can just do like the same thing, and it won't say anything. It'll be like, okay, well, it's gone forever. So I kind of do actually think like a lot of the time I kind of would rather have this behavior than the other one. I'm sure you can do it, but yeah, I've implemented like a lot of the features from Helix into Kakoune already, which is really fun. So the surround is not there. There's the core stuff like have it be based on, you know, like when we look at the sort of more superficial features I'm talking about. I think overall though, I'm becoming heavily Kakoune pilled in a way because where the complexity of making your own personal Vim seems like a pain in the ass in Vim, for some reason for me it doesn't in Kakoune, and the main edit mode stuff is better. The lack of visual mode is a feature, not a bug. It's a weird concession that I think it takes the appeal. If you know about Kakoune, I think my opinions become, if you know about Kakoune, the proposition of Helix becomes it's like Vim but with different motions and you can't configure it as much, which is not that strong. Whereas Kakoune's, it is Vim but with different motions for good reason, and they're more comprehensive motions, and it's much faster. It's kind of what you're doing, but it's got a much smaller. In both cases, it's true that they both got much smaller communities. So I think if you do it in terms of GitHub stars, which I think is a terrible metric, but I think in terms of bums and seats, I think probably like if you go to all of the end of year developer surveys, Helix often doesn't even appear, or if it does, it's towards the bottom of the list. Kakoune does not appear at all. So it's probably like, and then Near Vim's not very high up the list, let's be real. So even Near Vim is like a niche. But I think all the modal editors are growing, especially at the minute, like all the Vibe Code LLM people, when they realise actually having all of these applications is kind of inferior just having a terminal app open, and then that means you've got Vim or whatever you want to the side of it. And if you want to start using a terminal-based editor, you're gonna learn Kakoune or Helix faster. You just are. If you come in from nothing. If you're a Vim person or you're very Vim experienced, you do have way too much muscle memory built up to ever see the benefit in it, because you're already, you know, that thing of like inside Vim doing like D2W, right? It's a really simple motion. Is effectively the way I like to look at it is it's basically right. This is it, right? Delete. Right, and your first argument is num, and your second is object, right? And once you internalize that and you can make sense of it and get fast enough to do that mental thing in real time, cool, I think you're going to be fine forever. And there's literally not very much reason for you to use Kakoune unless you prefer the way in which unless you for whatever reason, other reason, you prefer the motions, or you prefer the composability versus extensibility argument. There's a really good article which sort of outlines really eloquently the difference between the extensibility versus composability, and you compose in Kakoune and you extend in Vim, right? Because in Kakoune you're always reaching out to other terminal applications, and you've got really good hooks for getting that data back into Kakoune. And that's one feature that I've, I must say, I shamefully very quickly threw this together with an LLM, and right now LLMs make me feel dirty. Because I kind of really hate them, but also they are very convenient. You know, I'm trying to wean myself off, and the fact I have to use the word wean, and everyone's going, "Oh yeah, explains the extent of the problem," right? It feels like you're a little drug addict. And like, although I do development occasionally for work, I do. Well, I mean, I've always done development as part of my job, but like primarily I'm a designer, right? Just one that codes. And I feel like, and this might be me being a little elitist, every time I say, "Oh, I'm a designer that codes," oh yeah, so, and I had this in my last job, like, oh, when I say I'm a designer, you've done a little bit of vibe coding. It's like, no, I started learning to code before I became a designer in like literally the 2000s. I've been doing web development as long as the internet's been around almost, right? I think I started doing web stuff in like 2004, 2005, intermittently, and being like, or it's like previously, like, oh, you know a bit of HTML, don't you? It's like, no, I like, you know, that's gotten worse with the advent of, or maybe I'm butthurt about it, I don't know, but the advent of like the vibe code people, and you don't want to be lumped in with the quote unquote vibe coders, but also I don't want to be so much of, I don't want to be a Luddite either. So I'm trying to be very aware of the limitations and the problems with them, but also, and the main problem actually really for me is, because I'm doing sort of ethical part of it, of which I have many issues, is, and how businesses deploy it, which again I have many issues with, is the atrophy you start to get very quickly when you use LLMs too much. And if you are someone who can code, you use them very differently to the way a vibe code person would, right? It's more about putting them in a box to ensure they do the right thing. And some even really good developers give in and just do a slightly better version of the vibe code thing and just fire a load of stuff and go, well, that's probably fine. And it's like, that irks me. Not irks me, not in a judgy, like, how dare you kind of way, but in like it's something that this system that's so enticing is doing to you, where it makes you, I think, if you don't know any better, if you're just like someone off the street who says, like, oh, I'm going to vibe code myself an application, and it inevitably breaks because they do, spoiler alert, they can't do maintenance at all. It's not in their repertoire for LLMs to maintain software properly. If you think otherwise, you've not run a project long enough, or not run a project long enough, you've been kind of lucky, or you aren't necessarily qualified to know when it's a problem, right? And those small intangible problems soon become big problems, and they become extremely difficult to fix long term. And that's so much of what software engineering is insulating yourself against known issues in the long term for like proper software, things that need to go in front of people and work forever. Making the thing is easy. It's always been the easy bit. Making it scale and making it work forever is the difficult bit. And that's the journey we've always been on, right? Rant of that part over. But yeah, and it's like that thing of like, it makes you devolve where you've spent all, and you go, well, I don't have to worry about it anymore. Because right now, the corporate lay people in charge of you, right, say, well, that doesn't matter, right? Because the mindset of people when it comes to software engineering, which hasn't changed, even with vibe coding, it's like a magic box you put words into and functionality comes out, right? And vibe coding does not necessarily increase your ability to understand the nature of what writing code actually is any better, right? If you're just vibe coding away and you're not paying attention to the underlying thing, you're not learning via osmosis, which a lot of people could, but most people I think aren't. But if that makes you someone who has got that background in development, lean into that and start being quote unquote lazy, but like offloading that cognitive part of what your job is. You're letting your skills atrophy on purpose, and I'm really aware of that. And where I don't have to code all day professionally, just occasionally professionally, I have the luxury of saying, you know what, I need to stop doing this so much because it's not good for me. And also, when you work on actual real projects, I have got a real code project that I am working on, which, again, one of my biggest fears of it is when it comes to release, and I go, "Oh, do you vibe code this?" Like, no, I wrote it from scratch for like 2 years, and it only spent like a few months adding or using some LLMs to get, like, it needs to be in beta, and I need to gain some ground quickly to get some features in. I use LLMs heavily for space of maybe 3 months to gain that ground. That's all turned into tech debt already because they're bad, and it's like, I know this. Do you know what I mean? It's that thing. So, and I found myself even then letting it do too much occasionally, where you'd let your guard down, it would just inject something really stupid, and it's like, well, I've got a luxury of that's a product that doesn't necessarily make money. I'm not like a hustler. This is something I actually want to make. It's not this thing that's supposed to take over the world. I have quite like modest aspirations for what I want this product to do. So I can hack that, right? So I can decide I want to put these LLM tools down because they kind of suck. But going back to my point I was making previously was, you know, with the feature I'd implemented in Kakoune, which I've done very lazily, which is quite fun. I need to redo it to make it, I think, a little bit better. Is I have an interactive syntax picker, right? So inside here, I can do, this is Helix, I can do set language, and I can type in, it gives me a list, and I can say, well, let's make this Rust. I don't write any Rust. But now we've got this set to Rust, right? Same thing in here, I can do, I think it's like set, what was it, set, it'd be set buffer, what was it, set buffer language, is it? I can't remember. Set buffer file, no, set buffer file type, there we go, file type. Right, and then you do, and it doesn't have anything in here, so then you can just sort of like be like, I don't know, Rust, and it will do it. It doesn't show you because I'm going to scratch it, won't show you, which is another weird thing about Scratch files. But yeah, I'm now in Rust syntax. It doesn't show you in Scratch files, which again is kind of weird. The sort of formal Scratch file thing I'm not sort of super into. But I changed it, so I've got a thing where I can do FS and say pick syntax, and it pulls it out into a nice. Again, it's because that's this composability thing. So I've got a thing where I've got a function, and I can just say, well, just pipe this into FCF and then pipe the result back in, and it'll automatically do the rest for me. So I can say, same thing again, Rust. Let's just open up a real file so we can see it. Oh, the wrong bloody thing, hang on. CD cac, and then we'll just do cac, and then we will open up a real file, and we'll just do commands.cac, and then space S, and I can say that this is, for argument's sake, this is now Rust, right? It's really nice. Let's just get this back and cac. Okay, because then that's a feature I used to really like in Nova, which is like a GUI editor I used to use a lot, where their file switching or their syntax switching worked really, really well, and it had a nice, like, you could do it from the command palette, and nothing else at the time did that from the command palette. I'm like, well, why can't I change language from the command palette? Why do I have to move my mouse, click on something, blur, and I can just implement that here, and it's so quick. I've done that, absolutely. Anyway, forget that. So that's why I added that. But yeah, I think, like, you know, I need to rewrite that minus LLM, because yeah, I'm just trying to excise most of that from my workflow if I can. So I cancel all my subscriptions, which, and also, like, the problem with it is economically is it's going to become really expensive because it has to be, right? So that's the elephant in the room no one talks about, is the fact that when Anthropic sell you $200 of Claude usage, they're actually spending, like, I think it's $1,000 to $2,000 on compute for that, like a 10x, right? Almost like that's crazy, ludicrous amount of money to set on fire. And at some point, for these businesses to continue existing, They just have to become profitable because that's how the system works, right? You can't have irrational spending forever, especially at the rate which like the whole sort of quote unquote AI industry is burning through cash. That's not sustainable. Anyone who says it isn't a bubble is stupid or willfully ignorant. It is a bubble, it always was, and a lot of these companies need to, the ones at the top of the pile need to now make enough moves to ensure they can at least get to some position of profitability post the watershed moment, which will get rid of a lot of the sort of signal to noise thing that happens inside bubbles bursting, right? All of the sort of fluff projects, everything that's basically a GPT wrapper, I think people know this, but they are not going to exist, right? It's that bigger fish thing when you say, if you've got a tool that's a derivative of a tool that already does the thing that you do, but you've just done minimal work to present it slightly differently or a facet of it slightly differently, that product will not exist if the tool you're based on already does it better than yours can, naturally, right? They will stop existing. Right now they can make money, they can get investment because they've got the word attached to them. But when that word stops having that value, which is very soon, because the entire world is like, I'm sick of seeing those two letters attached to everything and how meaningless that tends to be. But also in terms of actual like moving the needle economically, they just aren't really. There's lots of small intangible ways in which LLMs are actually super useful. But in the big showy, show-offy things that need to justify the cost of them, I don't think that they are doing that. So everything always boils down to pilot programs that either fail or are quietly shuttered. When it comes to development, it's a longer tail, but increasingly you see management saying we need to use more of this, and more senior engineering heads saying, who are maintaining objectivity at least, are saying there's a degree of randomness to this which we can't control. No degree or no amount of skill files or markdown files we throw at it, shock horror. No amount of markdown files we throw at it can prevent it from just randomly doing some completely batshit stuff, or the sort of prevalent thing that LLMs do, which is changing the parameter of the problem to solve it, right? So like when you've got a bug and you say fix this bug, there's only so far it can have context because it has no intelligence, it has no context, it has no memory, right? All it has is a series of instructions that get longer, which the idea, I like the analogy I like to use is like it's a pachinko machine, right? This is what let's just do sketch. Right, so the analogy I like to use, it's like a pachinko machine. Let's go with this. Going way off topic here. Ah, God. Yeah, so I think of it as like a pachinko machine, right? So you've got like, here's your buckets that the information needs to go into, and you've got a bunch of like pegs, right? Here's your pegs, and here's your desired outcome. And at some point, you're going to add some ball bearings into the top of the pachinko machine. Let's make these ball bearing colored-ish. Make them grey, right? So when we say to one of them, I would like this answer, we drop a ball in, and what we're doing is stacking it. This is the bucket we're after, right? Or the bucket we think we're after, and we're saying, well, whatever. And as you increase your context, you're adding more balls, right? Because on a distribution curve, that means it makes it more likely that more of these balls will hit this. But you get past a certain point, you have more balls than you have, space in the bucket, and then some start to fall out of the bucket, right? That's that context rot you see, right? You add too much to this context, you're adding too many balls to the top of the pachinko machine, and you water down its ability to navigate this and find the likely result. Because all this does, it says, it's a next word predictor that says, we get to here, right? And then what's the next word? What's the most plausible word in this series? It's going to be this. Okay, go this way. Next one. It's this, right? And then all that does is it adds weight to that likelihood it's going to choose which direction to navigate through this little maze, right? To get to the result you want. There is no, that's it. That's the simplest way I can kind of describe it, right? Use adding more ball bearings to get into a bucket of a certain size. At some point, you can always add 2 more ball bearings to that bucket because it's still falling through a bunch of pegs and bouncing around, and it's still random, right? And the fundamental technology has not changed. There isn't like, so the actual larger like machine learning, right? Because it's LLMs are a subset of machine learning, right? And machine learning is a subset. Not really. AI is just a buzzword, really. Like AI does not exist. LLMs, large language models, are transformer models, which are a machine learning technique, which detects the next word in a series of words to find the most likely next word in the sequence, times fucking huge, right? And all we're doing right now, okay, is saying more data colors the layout of this pachinko machine, right? And more compute churns through that data set faster, right? And increases the accuracy of this. But you're still always dropping a ball into a fucking pachinko machine. And these buckets, these numerous buckets of billions of potential outcomes, you're still always dropping balls through the pachinko because the core technology has not moved on, like, at all. Everything's always gilding the lily. Everything's always stuff around the outside. So the thing with why that's a problem is because of the failure modes, right? So it means that every time, and the more specific this gets, and the more you subdivide it, that context rot and that information rot thing, means that every time this gets larger, the odds of it's like, this is the bucket you want, right? And occasionally, no matter what you do, it's going to go over here, right? And it's going to give you something subtly wrong. And also, because they're eager, right? So an LLM always has to give you a result. It can't just say no, because there is no intelligence. So it can't say, no, this is wrong, let's change tact. So it leads to this sort of like people talking a couple of years ago when people are speculating about them, are they sentient? And I think the consensus has become now, no, they are not, right? But the magical thinking around where the technology goes next still prevails, right? Where they go, well, it does this today, but what will it do tomorrow? And it's like, well, no, you've got to separate the application of a technology versus what it actually is doing, right? This is a bad but not terrible analogy of how it kind of sort of works-ish, I suppose. But yeah, throwing more of these at it is not really innovation, right? And we just keep pushing that further with more and more spend because we look at the implications of the potential implications of the size of the market this may hypothetically produce. But this failure mode does not exist, does not change at any point. There's still patterns that emerge because it is just ultimately an algorithm. There is still no intelligence, there's still no decision-making ability with it. It just does a really, really good impression of it. So the boundaries are still there. At some point, you're always going to get something fall into a ball you don't expect, and this leads to this emergent behavior of when you run into a problem in code, when you say, oh, I've got this issue, and you can think about, let's get rid of all this. So I've got an issue, and I can think about all the things around that issue and deduct the most correct path forward, which may not be correct, but it's your intuitive sense of what can be correct. Now, what an LLM does, because it has no intelligence, as the data, so it can look at examples of this and say, well, in most of these scenarios, this is the one that got picked, right? Because it's the one that's weighted most heavily in the data set is this one here. So it'll suggest that to you. But if you're in a situation where this data set, let's say this data set here of potential outcomes, let's say problem is going to be green, right? Problem is green. And then potential solution is blue. And then round is selected solution, right? So let's say in any given scenario, you've got this many options, right? And it's got enough of an example data set to say, well, this one's the one that's most common. This is the one I'm going to go with. Cool. And alternatively, this one is almost there. So we can also defer to this if the user says, go to this one instead, right? If you're in a scenario that's more novel and your actual example set is this, there's nothing an LLM can suggest to you as a way forward, right? It's got little tiny pieces of this, fragments of it, but again, there's no knowledge of how that goes. So it's got like, let's say there is a solution out there that's undocumented or not available in the data set, or so wibbly wobbly with so little supporting information around it that it's very hard to discover what the solution is. Like if you think back to the concept of Google Whack, if you know what that is, it'd be a result on Google to which there's only one website that links to it, right? If you Google Whack an LLM, they fucking shit their pants. And every time you see a problem, well, not every time, a lot of the times you see it do something mental, it's because it's found one of these scenarios, right? So when you Google Whack it, so here's our scenario, here's our actual solution over here, but there's no scrapable reference data for the LLM to find to reach this thing. But it might know this chunk of it, right? Let's just make the difference we see it. So this piece of it, and let's say fuck it, this piece, and then this piece, oops, and then this piece, it knows. Okay, so there is some outside chance it might bumble its way to finding the solution. It's extremely unlikely because all it can do is peck. Again, there is no thought, there is no intelligence, there is no knowledge. So it needs to follow a breadcrumb trail, but if it doesn't exist, it can't get there. So you find it going around in circles, and that's one of those failure modes. So what it will try and do is, because it needs to give you an answer, it will go based on, and then every time it says, like, and it introduces new redundant code, or it does something slightly different, it says, well, I've done this instead. I've thrown out your entire implementation of this because the words you used didn't constrain me enough, so I've re-implemented this feature in X way to solve your problem. That's changing the parameters of the problem in order to come up with a solution, because it's doing that same thing, right? It hasn't got a strong enough grasp on what you do, and you're then pecking at it to make it try and grab onto one of these little breadcrumb trails, right? And saying, please, 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 get onto this track. And even from there, that's still only one branch in this thing. You've still got all of these other branches to get to make it get to here, right? The actual solution. So when it changes the parameters of the problem, it's saying, well, I don't know how to get to this branch. I'm going to go this way, because I know that this is answer to question is this way, right? And if you don't give it pay enough attention, and if you cannot nudge it this way, you'll end up in a situation where it will just get stuck. And that's that thing when those projects that people vibe code stop working, and the LLM can't fix it, is because it does this all the time. Every time it gets to a problem it can't find, or it doesn't know the intent behind, it just drifts off course, and it's going down a little goose chase of all of its own. That failure mode is inherent in the system. That's a feature. That's a feature of LLMs. That's because of how they work, right? And because they're transformer models, until you change fundamentally how that technology works, it will always do this, because it has to always do this. And the cost of forcing it to not do this is so astronomical. We're seeing it play out in real time, and how small increments we get forward of it is astronomical, because it's data, and it's vast quantities of data to get to a scenario where it doesn't do this as often. But how do you do it for every scenario ever? Because there is no intelligence, right? So there's an element of it which is kind of like a dead end. I'm not saying this is me saying this thing is completely useless. It's so fraught a tool. You need to, what I've just sort of said, however you want to sort of articulate that to yourself, you have to understand to be, and that's that sort of that intangible part of it. There's different, and there's more to it than this, right? There's all these intangible or fuzzy things around it, because you've got a more vague interface into how you use tools, right, via LLMs, which makes them inherently hard to trust. And at the moment we're at the stage in, like, there's like the Gartner hype cycle. I think there must be some sort of like technology making usefulness cycle as well, right? Where you're on some sort of road to getting, getting a technology to be useful. So, like, let's go like this, and eventually you're going to end up here, right? I don't know what this actual shape looks like, but yeah, you've got this, right? And at some point over here, you've got technology being good and useful, and at some point around here, you're going to make loads of fucking mistakes to understand how to use it, right? Because these things are complicated. And eventually, this will always happen. This is just the nature of things, the nature of everything. How big are these shapes? They're fucking huge. And when it comes to using LLMs, there's so much complexity to how to navigate their shitness en masse, because we just sort of fire hose this into existence, that this becomes a much longer trail. It's like the Gartner hype cycle, where, if you've ever seen that before, where it's like the bigger the thing, there's a sort of like slope. I can't be asked to get the pitch, but it's a thing. Google it. And it's similar with this, right? The technological adoption. So you can chart this graph to loads of different technologies, and the more they achieve, the harder it is to eventually let that water settle, right? Because we always try and find ways to optimize things. The point is, the fact that they cost so much money to run, they have to become more expensive. Massively. The fact that you have this unsolvable problem of the vagueness of what they'll do long term in the places where they technically make the most sense. You've got two major markets, right? You've got vibe coders, who are very low opinion, not vibe coders, but like people who casually use these tools. Much more budget conscious, right? Because they have to be. They're lay people. So they expect things to be double-digit dollars per month at best, or free, right? And the more you give them free, the less they want to spend. So you've got that problem. But to get people to use these tools, a lot of them had to become free. That's a whole different issue, right? How do you get people to see using LLMs as a feature? No, as like a product and not a feature, right? So things like searching for stuff, Google Gemini, ChatGPT and stuff in general, long term that has to basically be free for most people, because no fucker wants to pay for it because they've been told it's been free. And if you say, well, now this costs money, you're not going to get them all to pay for it. Like at one point, AOL wanted you to pay to access you'll pay for the access to the internet, but you ain't going to pay to it's like we need to pay for text messages, right? You just send less messages because no. And eventually they all became unlimited messages for a fixed fee, and you're okay, fine. And then you pay for the access, and then messages became just the cost of the subscription. No one cares or thinks about phone minutes or text messages anymore. LLM token usage is the same. No one gives a shit. They'll pay to get access to a thing, but if the thing's not that useful, they're not going to pay for it. And the thing is not the LLM. The thing is the fucking phone it's on, right? LLMs are like LLM tools are like text messages. No one's going to pay for that shit. The vast majority. Obviously, there's use cases that are more niche where people will, but that's a smaller market, right? So the general public are not going to pay that much money for most of this crap, because they aren't. And like, things like Sora has disappeared already, right? A lot of the image generation stuff people don't use in any way meaningfully. Nano Banana is a really interesting party trick that I think they're all going to kind of adopt to try and keep that party going for longer. But again, a lot of those are going to vanish because it's really expensive to do and no one really wants to pay for it. And professional work, there's a lot of like that's what it boils down to. A lot of this ends up being the stuff that end users expect for free, which doesn't move the needle financially for people, like Google, ChatGPT, not OpenAI, whatever. And then you've got like the more niche use cases which do make money, and in the case of different industries, they are different values. And there's like probably hundreds of billions of dollars right out there for this, maybe a few $1 trillion eventually, right, inside this industry. There is not what we've spent. That's just the fact of it right now. There's not enough money right now for what has been spent. That's how a bubble forms, right? The amount spent to build this technology and to get where we are will not be returned by the size of market that exists for this product. And that's been proven out in numbers by like PricewaterhouseCoopers and Deloitte and all those sorts. They've just been saying it for a while now. It is a bubble. So, and the problem is, as more and more people in development are seeing that this is unavoidable, this whole sort of like indirection falling off the track, you can't do anything around this. It means that it's not so much they are useless unilaterally, it means that the rules around how you use them are already starting to shrink. And going back to this idea of having this technology signal to noise curve thing, right? When you say at the beginning, oh, I can use this magical box to write, let's say you're the perspective of an actual developer, right? Oh, I can use this thing to generate code, but the code quality is extremely bad. Lame, not going to use it, you fall off. You'll come back and you go, actually, you know what? This is like the Claude getting good moment. You go, well, actually, it produces some pretty clean code. Oh, okay, interesting. Oh, hang on. No, it makes every once in a while it's going to shit its pants. Oh, well, actually, no. Skills, they'll help. Okay, cool. Do. Oh, wait, no, we can do these all in parallel. Oh, but the more you leave them going in parallel, the more those versions start shitting their pants. Okay, we're getting orchestration layer. Okay, let's carry on. And you go, well, actually, the orchestration layer cannot change the fact they make these mistakes. They're deleting my entire production DB when they feel like it occasionally, because that's the thing they do. And they just carry on because orchestration of these is not, well, we'll just cut down the number of agents we use a little bit. Okay, let's carry on now. You see what I'm saying? And then you go, well, we need more tooling. So, okay, let's increase more tooling around it. And then you get to the same thing. You go, okay, well, we increase the tooling. Oh, wait, no, it still ignores it half the time. Well, let's add more tool. Oh, and it still ignores it half the time because it fucking has to. And every time this happens, and this is like going in, let's change the scale on this. Unless that technology fundamentally changes, right? That's not going to happen. That failure mode has not changed at any point. And there's so much hype around it, but ultimately, while they're still Transformers, they will still do this. It's their mode of operation. That's not going to change. It might get slowly better, but it's never going to be a thing where whatever. And then people sort of like start hand waving and you know, saying stuff like, well, you know, developers aren't make mistakes as well, but also developers can't make mistakes of the magnitude of these systems. And again, this is not to say they're useless. It's not to say they won't take jobs. They will. This is what I'm saying universally. When people say, oh, developers are cooks, no, they need to be driving these things. And the more they use them and the more mistakes they make at scale, because they do and will and can, and they hide their mess by changing the parameters of the problems they solve instead of solving real problems, that's tech debt. And tech debt costs money. Tech debt costs shitloads of money, and we're so early into all of this. Tech debt amortizes over time, right? It goes from being a thing, it sort of metastasizes from a mistake made in the code base into something that is unavoidable, that then becomes a big problem, then starts to really cost money, then starts to pull things down. And the further that goes, the harder it is, and the more expensive it becomes to solve. And the rate at which, if you're letting these things go at massive speed, unsupervised, in the knowledge that they will slip stupid things into code bases, change parameters to problems, make tech debt on their own, all that does is hide that problem for you until later. It's just pushing it. It's the way 7-year-olds clean their bedroom. They push it into a cupboard, close the door, and eventually you're going to start finding the tech debt. Solving it is expensive. Plus the fact that right now, like, there's these companies saying like, oh, like, produce more code is not desirable, right? Like, doing stuff in the like, there's a person I super like in the Ember community, Nullvox Populi, Preston. They're like prodigious developer. They're fucking fantastic, absolutely brilliant. But also they say, you know, I'm trying to get my contributions to my work code base to be net negative. I want to reduce the lines of code inside our code base through my work, which is correct, right? More code, more lines of code means more places for stupid bullshit to hide. The fewer lines of code you've got, the less stupid you can have, right? And your ability to reason about that code base, once it goes beyond the scope of a single person's ability to understand, which is a big hurdle, deferring that to a system that cannot have memory or truly understand a system without lots of guardrails is a problem waiting to happen. Plus the fact, if they actually cost the end user 1/10 of their actual cost, right? When the irrational spending goes, either the tools they use sink, or the prices go to what they should have been, or what OpenAI are doing right now. They are subsidizing, or attempting to subsidize, unsuccessfully subsidize the model, right? By saying we want to do advertising. They want to lean into the really scummy stuff of like having, letting you have like LLM girlfriends, little sycophant machines. There's also the thing of like, which I hate as well, the whole social engineering aspect of it, with like, it sounds conspiratorial, but that thing of like where they reaffirm you, like, oh, great idea, excellent. You can like poke it to do certain things. You know, the output is always random, but you can weight it, right? So when it reaffirms how genius you are, a developer, for coming up with this, you go, what if we did this feature? It'll go, if it hasn't got a very good reason in its data set to say no, again, you're putting a ball on top of a pachinko machine and saying, find me a thing. If you come up with some legitimately novel idea, or idea so obscure or old or pointless, right, that it hasn't got a good answer to say to you, which it can occasionally say is, you could do this instead. But if you're persistent, it will then say, oh yeah, okay, cool. And if you've noticed, one thing that's happened, especially with Claude actually, is a lot of its language has changed recently to be more sycophantic than it was previously. And even tell it not to be sycophantic, it'll drop out of it. Again, the context window is small, right? So it'll forget. It'll start licking your ass again. And occasionally it'll say to you, "That's a great idea, fantastic," and you go, "Oh, I know. This is such a force multiplier. I'm so much more productive. Oh my god, this is so good." It's like it's giving me the power to execute my ideas faster. It's like, no, these ideas might be stupid, right? And it's not responsibly saying to you that person, that developer, you know, the one in the room, he's a dick. He knows his shit, but he's an arse. You don't really want to speak to him. But occasionally, you avoid talking to him because you know what he's like. It's like, why have you done that? And he's got all these opinions and just tiresome. But he still knows his stuff. And you go to him one day and you sincerely go, look, Pete, Phil, it's always a P word, or Dave. We had one, I worked in the company, his name, what was his name? I think his name was Dave. And he had like long metal hair and it was really greasy and he just sort of smelled like old people's houses, you know, like, and he was a douche. And it's not like the fact that he smelled weird and had long hair was the problem. I knew other people with long hair. Also, because that the trifecta, right? But you eventually go to him and say like this, and he responds to you with a fantastic insight. He'll tell you why you're wrong, exactly why, because the depth of his knowledge and his opinion, in this case, are extremely useful. And having that friction has put you on the right path for a solution to this problem. No one is infallible, right? But this sycophantic system that doesn't actually know anything, telling you your ideas are fantastic, is a way for the companies to get you to feel good about using it, to make you want to use it more. I was saying the other day about how much I hate I hate Microsoft Teams, I hate Slack, because there's a point at which advertisers would use the Microsoft Teams notification ding in like adverts for like fast food, because it makes you pay attention, because you fucking Pavlov dogs yourself into going like, oh, it's the Microsoft Teams ding, I've got to look. And you look at the fucking TV to watch an advert for like pizzas, which are full of shit that will kill you. It's like, it's so dystopian. It's that, right? It's that same sort of thing of like having TikTok Reels being a feature in every bit of software ever, in every social media thing. Social media in itself just being these things to sort of like, we've run out of, it's just the base like currency of the internet is attention, right? And we're also fucked. And now we've got these tools which make everything seem much less interesting, because you can just fire hose anything into your own eyes at will, and then everything becomes increasingly disposable, and you become less engaged with the world as a person, as a consequence of it. Yeah, and also you got to pay for it. It's such bullshit. It's such bullshit. And also, they don't even fucking work properly. And that's the thing. Like, again, they're not useless. There's some uses to LLMs. And I hope for a world where we get to this point and we go, actually, we all understand what this is and we can use these things responsibly. And enough of the companies die off that we can get left with the stuff that's actually fucking useful. And we're all grown-ups about this. Or not, right? I said the same thing about social media bringing the world together 15 years ago, and look what it's fucking done. So who knows? That's very dystopian. That's very sad. Let's go back to talking about text editors. Oh, having a wonderful time. Clapping dentist. So what was I talking about before? Went on a massive tangent. Oh yeah, using LLMs to create features inside Kakoune. So I'm trying to stop doing that, basically. So I've done a couple, because again, it's one of those things where I don't fully see the problem in using an LLM just to sort of say, well, write me out a bunch of, fluff that I know is disposable, I fully understand, and you can't fuck up, right? On such a short leash that you can't possibly mess this up. I'm trying to get rid of that instinct to do that, because it just saves me a bit of typing. I'm going to try and get back into like just doing the typing, because I've got a bit of the luxury of being able to just do some of the typing, right? Because I want to. I don't have anyone breathing down my fucking neck to say you've got to use these tools all day, or keep your internet token maxing. It's like the more tokens you use means you're producing more value, and it's like, no, that's not how that works. And you get the people being like, oh my god, Claude usage is getting worse. I wonder why. It's getting worse. Maybe because they need to reduce their operational expenses, because they know the fucking bubble's slowly deflating. Anyway, yeah, so I'm going to try not to do that, which gets me eventually an hour and 38 minutes into the stream onto the thing I was supposed to be doing today. Is, right, basically I have a theme, right? You've seen it this entire time. This is my theme. This is a terrible file to open. Let's go to this thing, and then we just do CAC. Hate writing CAC, and let's go to whatever. No, let's go to a SAS file. There we go. This theme you see here, which is not really working properly at the minute. We'll do the same thing in Helix. Let's just do this, and then we will go to. In fact, just close that down. Create a new one, and just do HX. And what file is this? Flex. There we go, perfect. Yeah, this looks a little bit more like that. Right, so this is, I have a theme. I've had it for ages. So I wrote a theme for myself. It was an aspirate. Got another tangent. Years and years ago, I started using Sublime Text, and they had a version of Monokai that I loved, and I never wanted anything more. From syntax highlighting, it was perfect. I know I'm weird because I care about this sort of stuff. This session's called Cute Kilometer. Yeah, it's everything I could ever wanted, and then they changed it. The fuckers went and changed it, and then I was like always trying to be like, I want this exact. I became fussy about syntax highlights So one day when I started using a different, so obviously everyone's gone through different editors for ages, and I used something called Nova for like 18 months or something, and I made a few like little plugins for it, and the one that was the most popular was the plugin because I made it for myself, and I was like, well, fuck it, I'll put it out there, why not? Because it, like the way you create, the way you created themes inside Nova was really intuitive, and like it was really well done. They did an excellent job of exposing their theming system. It's still the best version of this theme exists in Nova. Yeah, so it got popular. So like people started using it, and I made more variations. It's called Ashikai because it just is. That's my first name, and it was originally made for me. It's not a very good name, but I'm kind of stuck with it because that got like many like thousands of downloads or whatever, right? And then I ported it to Visual Studio Code. And it's got a couple of thousand downloads. It's doing okay. And then it's in the next release of Helix as well. So it's been poured into there. So it's got a little bit of like the tiniest little smidge of momentum, to the point where people said, "Oh, use your theme." It's just kind of fun, or one of the variations. So the idea was I'm going to port it to Kakoune. It's a mouthful, and I did it very lazily before, but I'm going to do it properly in a minute. So if we go into one of my favorite features in Helix is you just do theme. And you can see mine right at the top. You can just preview them in real time. And here are mine. So there's a default. There's a brown one, a green one, the purple one, which is the most popular, and there's one more which is not here currently because this is the wrong thing. I'm not pulled from main at the minute, but there's like a light mode one called creamy beige. If you get that reference, then cool. But yeah, so there's basically the blue one, which is the default, brown one, green one, and a purple one. There's also a high contrast version of the default one, and it looks kind of like this. But actually, I think I could have gone in actually into hang on, CD code, CD dash. I should have just done this instead. Really? Oh, HX. Yeah, so we should have some. There we go. We've got, let's do the JS example. What? Theme? Oh dear. There's definitely a bug in Helix. Oh my god. Yeah, that's actually trying to be a JavaScript file. That's odd. .py. There you go. For some reason, JavaScript highlighting had just failed on me. Good work, Helix. Anyway, yeah, so it looks a bit more like this. So if you go to theme, this is like a little Python example that just exists in here. So yeah, you can see sort of how it looks, right? So yeah. So yeah, the idea is port that over to Kakoune. What I've been trying to do, because it varies a little bit. So go into Nova, which is, let's open the same thing. So you can't see this on a different screen. Go to Ashikai. Boop. Oops. So this guy originated in Ashikai Nova. Right, there we go. Resources, and then we'll just do jokes. And I've got one in Python. There we go. So let's just zoom in a little bit so you can actually read that. Okay, yeah. So Nova settings. Oh, theme. There we go. So yeah, and you can see it here. There we go. Look, contrasty, and then you've got the creamy beige, got the green called Evermore, and you've got purple. Fantastic. Talking about theme here, right? It's not that big a deal. But the point is, I like it. People seem to kind of like it, so I'm gonna port it to more places. And Rust, which is, I haven't got Rust installed, I guess, and then there is my there's some thing. The thing that was really good. So the Nova one is still the main one. It's the best one because the way you can actually, because that was the other thing I wanted to do, was I want to get super specific about how I manage the colors between languages, which you can do really easily inside Nova. And not every other editor exposes this amount of granularity, right? So if we look at all the general stuff here, here's the main file, right? I don't know why it changes to HSL. Does this support? OKCLH? OCKLH? It doesn't. Or does it? No, it does display P3, but it should be sRGB. Anyway, so yeah, Nova's still like the master place for Ashokai, I guess. But what we can do is you come a little bit further down, I can have specific languages, I can target them differently to change their highlighting to make it what I want it to be, right? To make them more consistent, because the way language features are identified in different languages varies based on, if you're using tree sitter, based on how they're tagged up, right? But they don't follow a visual consistency. So if you look at a function in one language, the function keyword, although it should be a keyword, right, or function in every single language, can be something different. So variable, for example, this varies, and how variables are treated and how like things like functions or methods are constructed or whatever, it varies between languages, and their visual like makeup inside the editor varies as well. So they can look quite different, although they're doing the same thing between two different languages. Try and get an example of that. Joke.js here, we've got, so constructor, setup, punchline. If I do a similar thing, oh no, so again, in Nova it's going to be pretty good. But if we go to, I haven't got Elixir installed, to have PHP, there we go. Yeah, so you look between functions between Joke.js, looks like that, and PHP, looks like that, right? I've put less attention to PHP because, frankly, fuck PHP. But yeah, you can target them specifically here. So there's one for Antlers, which is one of the plugins I put in for. It's really out of date now. I don't use Statamic really anymore, unfortunately. But yeah, we've got one for Twig, Alexa. Yeah, some for PHP, and then also this is for a specific plugin. So you can target specific plugins because you can find. Let's do this here. Oh, I can't. It's not turned on, is it? Window. Whatever. There's a little mode. I can't remember how to put it on, to be honest. Where you can inspect it's tree sitter def interactively, so you can see how to target it, which is very fun. So yeah, and these are some of the targets that pulled out specifically. Things like handlebars, SQL. So you can not just do you can make these more consistent between languages, which is what I was doing in Nova, which is why the Nova version is probably the best. I think, because I've not really looked it up yet. That actually, I'm going to keep this alive and put it on a different screen. I think that Kakoune, I might be able to do similar stuff, but it's more complicated. So I think it could be either way. Like, I care about making the theme really good, right? So I need to do a little bit of reading, but I did very quickly and very lazily. Let's close that down. CD CAC. Here we go. Wham in a bunch of these. So yeah, adapted from. I did this with an LLM very lazily. Gonna do it properly. So yeah, I just went pulling my theme from Helix. Actually, it should be bang on actually. So here we go. So this is the thing, these faces, right? This is just like basically a face is like a text highlighter. So default, because I put in, I mean actually no, also I should install Helix from head because that's the correct because the one I've got is an old local guy. Because these got a bit of. In fact, let's just do this quickly. I'm going to go over here. Go to Helix. I'm just going to be Helix editor GitHub. I'm going to be lazy, and I'm just going to. I think it's. I can't remember what they are. Oh, runtime themes. Yeah. This is how long it's taken them to. Oops, that's full screen. I hate the full screen in macOS. Right, yeah. This is how long it's taken them to actually do this, right? So I put this in, expecting they're going to be released soon, and 7 months ago I did this. Excellent. Right, so let's just have a look. This is the more recent one. So do I inherit? I don't think I do. Or do I? Am I inheriting? Ashokai brand. I think I had to put in a refactor. Yeah, inherit hash codes. I had to refactor this. Yeah, so I did, and I think if I go back to the one I've got in my local, so quit there, and then it's in Helix, HX, Ashore. Yeah, this is just, yeah, there we go. So I'm not inheriting. So this is well old, and I changed a bunch of stuff in the meantime. So I've got a, yeah. Okay, so yeah, what I'll do then, I'll have to pull it in from my latest version from main on Helix. I've got all of them. Did I do contrasty? I think I got rid of contrasty because I think what I did for, because yeah, there's if we go to the, such a good name for this theme. Right, there we go. Hey. Well, there we go. So here's the thing. Right. So yeah. So there's these variants, right? So we've got the default one. We've got the contrasty one, the slightly purple one, which is called Urple because it's a bit purple. Bran, because it's the way Cockneys say brown. And then this is not true. That's available outside of Nova now. And then creamy beige. Is creamy beige in here? Did I do creamy beige? Ooh, did I not do it? You mentioned me? When was this? January. Themed hex color passing accepts reason. Bogus hex color length. Add support for hex color shorthand notation. Adds many tests. Fixes revealed malformed hex codes and themes to make CI happy. Introduced. What? What was the problem with this then? Sorry, I'm just going to do a bit of a. Fix missing. Oh, that's annoying. Commented out remaining unsupported meta stuff. Okay, author version. Okay, so the CI, that'll be, it says author and version. That's fine. I don't really care about having that in there. So yeah, fix revealed malformed hex codes. Malformed? Fixes revealed malformed hex codes and themes to make CI happy. Malformed hex codes. I caused the problem. So if you want to be like, oh, this guy's a good developer, this is the evidence to say otherwise, isn't it? Surely. Where was there a malformed hex code? Do they mention where it was? I would love to see it. 1, 2, 3. Ooh, hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What? Ooh. What is that 7th character for? Let's just go into Nova. 70. So line number selected. That's not very useful. Great. Some more annoying ones. That's useful. That's always good. Okay, so. Okay, line. Let's just do selected. If I move that here so you can see it. Why not? Selected. Button highlighted. What is that? Button selected. Meta text selected. Or in brown. Let's do Urple. Okay. Selected. Let's do that. Text selected. There'll be that. So, what's that in RGB into a hex value? 493A77. And what's that? What is then? What is? Let's just wham that in. 726 2A6. Oh, there is a malform thing in there. Ah, okay. And we've got the UI help BG color isn't defined in the palette. There's a style lint there. Fix improved hex color parsing. Well, I mean, I guess you can say that my shitty in my defense, right, it's an extremely fucking tedious job. It's not. That was one thing that I've never bothered doing. Actually, the theme stuff, because now it supports. Well, I'll tell you now. It supports several. What was it? Yeah, it doesn't do JetBrains yet. Z is hopefully on the way. Yeah, Panic. So it's no verse Visual Code Helix. There's a half-finished JetBrains version of one of them, and then someone did me a PR for Z, but actually it's kind of trash, so I'd have to redo that from scratch. And they are a little bit inconsistent. So this is not in Visual Studio Code because I got bored. Again, it's not a project I wanted to be popular. But look, 16 stars. That's mind-boggling, the number of stars. So, what's he saying? Fixes. What has he done? Fix themes. Remove alpha channel. So that'll be. So if I put that into. So HSL. Yeah, that's probably. Oh, okay, that's an alpha. Ah, okay, that's why that's there. So I've put an alpha in. Okay, so really know how this works, right? Surely. Well, that's lovely. So he went and fixed it for me. Excellent. Cool. Let's just say thank you. No, delete. No, not review. Delete. Delete. Oh, no, actually, leave it. Fucking leave it. Just leave it alone. It's finished. Alright. Anyway, it's fine. So, fun. Okay, he fixed my theme for me. Yay. Okay. And then what's he done here? He's added Fun. Fun. I need to update that then when I get a chance. Okay, we'll have to do that at the same time. So, this seems overcomplicated. You should be able to do significantly less code, pattern matching, and early question mark returns. Don't know what they're referring to here. Hex pass. Don't take my horn, especially since this isn't even my original code, but you can take a look here for inspiration if you want. Whatever. Shorthand, blah blah. Just note you can always refer. Fine, whatever, I don't care. That's Rust stuff. Okie dokie. Oh wow. Load of conversation here. Fun. Okay, someone fixed it for me. Hooray! That's nice. So yeah, what I've got to do is rebuild it based off the current Helix thing. Is the one, isn't it? So I need to do a bunch of... That's going to be very boring for a stream. I might do this off stream. But yeah, yeah, a bunch of boring reading on actually how the theming works in Kakoune. So Kakoune, themes... So, it's nothing where Kakoune's problematic is because the documentation is shit. And like the thing with the documentation in Helix, I think is bad, right? The documentation in Kakoune is significantly worse. And also even find this sort of stuff. So I've started a new like awesome Kakoune repo. I don't know if I'm going to stick with it or not, so it could end up being more noise on the internet, but whatever.